I didn't expect her to show up on my porch, not after 16 years of silence, not after the night she shoved me out the door with a garbage bag of clothes and said, "You'll figure it out. I have a new family now." But there she was. Same face, older eyes. Two teenagers in the car behind her, faces lit by their phones, waiting. She smiled like she still had authority over me. "Let's talk," she said. Back then, I was 16 and naive enough to believe a mother's love was permanent. She had 2 new kids with her boyfriend. I was the reminder of her past life, the mistake she wanted erased. I begged her not to do it. It was winter. I had nowhere to go. But she slammed the door, and her boyfriend's shadow stood behind her like a wall. That night, I slept in a bus station. The next morning, I walked into a fast food joint and asked for a job. I worked, I studied, I bled to survive. And somewhere between hunger and humiliation, I promised myself one thing. If I ever clawed my way out, I would never forgive her. Years passed. College, scholarships, side hustles. I learned the language of money before I ever learned the language of love. By 28, I wasn't just surviving, I was building. Tech startup, investors. One lucky break turned into another. By 30, I was rich. By 32, untouchable. And that's when she found me. I noticed her email first, short, casual. "Hi, sweetheart, it's your mom. The kids are applying for college. We need your help with tuition. You're doing so well now, it's only right." I didn't reply. A week later, another message, longer, more desperate. Then came the knock on my door. She stood on my porch like she belonged there. Her words dripped with practiced guilt. "Your family, they're your siblings. Don't punish them for my mistakes." I let her talk. I watched the way her eyes darted, not at me, but at the house, the car, the life she could have had if she hadn't thrown me out. When she finished her speech, I asked one question. "Do they know who I am?" She hesitated. "They know you're their brother." "Do they know what you did?" Silence. Of course they didn't. She'd rewritten history. In her story, I was the selfish son who abandoned her. That night, I made my move. Not out of anger, not out of hate, out of precision. I wrote 2 letters. The first was to her, a check inside, $5,000. Enough to make her greedy, not enough to solve anything. The second was to her kids. No money, just truth. I hired a courier. Both envelopes delivered the same day. Her kids read my words before she could spin her lies. I told them everything. The night she threw me out. The bus station floor. The hunger. The silence. I didn't ask them for pity. I didn't ask for love. I only told them she chose her comfort over her child once. She will do it again. Decide if you trust her with your future. The fallout was swift. The kids confronted her, questions she couldn't answer. Why hadn't they known I existed beyond a name? Why did she have money for vacations but not for my survival? She called me that night, voice frantic. "You ruined everything. They don't look at me the same. They're blaming me. Do you know what you've done?" I stayed calm. "You asked me to pay for their future. I did. I paid with the truth. And then I hung up." Weeks later, her car showed up on my street again, but this time she didn't step out. Only the kids did. They stood awkwardly on my porch, holding an envelope. Inside was the check I'd sent their mother, ripped in half. One of them spoke. "She lied to us. About you, about everything. We don't want her money. We want a chance. Not pity, not begging, just honesty." I let them in. That was the real revenge. Not destroying her financially, not humiliating her, but stripping away the story she'd built for herself. Leaving her alone with her lies, while the children she'd weaponized against me chose the truth instead. I see her sometimes, online, posting old photos, pretending her life is still intact. But the kids don't live with her anymore. They're carving their own paths. I help, quietly. Not because I owe her, but because I know what it feels like to start with nothing. And every time I see their progress, I remember that night on my porch. Her smug smile, her entitled words. She thought she came to claim my success. She left stripped of her power. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't end with anger. It ends when the betrayer has to face the truth and realizes it was never theirs to control again.